Good morning to all you hardy souls who are here, and to hopefully the many people who are watching us online. Get all my stuff organized here. As you know, here at UUCW West, we offer gratitude for the privilege of living and gathering on traditional territory inhabited by various tribes over the years from the Seven Councils fire. And you'll have to excuse me, I'm just between like the end of having to wear glasses and maybe having to wear glasses because I've had cataract surgery. So upon further review, as I was saying, so much of the history of this land has been erased or ignored. Those of us who are settlers and newcomers are beholden to learn that history and engage in the work of reconciliation and reparation. As a welcoming community to gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, and queer plus peoples, we continue to address the ongoing homophobia, violence, and unfair legislation targeting them. As an anti-racist faith community, we also acknowledge that racism throughout our society continues to lead to the violent deaths and oppression of Jews, blacks, and indigenous people, and other people of color. May we engage in the struggle to dismantle this white supremacy culture in our hearts, in our community, and in the world. So for those of you who may not know, I'm Barb Holzhauer. I'm one of your board of trustees, and I am delighted to be here. I wasn't sure if I could make it. I was checking to see if the areas that needed to be plowed had gotten plowed, but they did, so that was a good thing. There are lots of different announcements that mostly I'm going to let you peruse and read. I had quite a conversation with Jim Fisher yesterday afternoon, and he asked me to once again highlight the yellow slip that you all should have received that talks about the UUCW Dominican Republic Brigade, which is going in the summer of 2026. You can donate online, you can drop it in the box. You can also consider volunteering for this group. So far, there are 8 who have volunteered and 10 additional who have expressed an interest. So we hope that you'll join them, visit the table, grab a brochure, support this cause. And let me see, there was one other thing that I wanted to be sure. Oh, I know. For quite some time now, we've had the shoe drive going on, and we are really close to reaching the goal. So in the announcements, it says 13 bags. I think it's down maybe to 12 and a half or something, as I heard this morning. But at any rate, if you were able to pick up some shoes from friends that you happened to be with over the weekend, we hope that you will bring them and add them to the collection that we have. And let me see if there's anything else that I need to do. If you're here, I don't see any younger kids here, but RE started at 10 this morning. I think that's about it.
Good morning. Welcome to UUCW on this beautiful snowy morning. My name is Deb Stevens. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a member of the worship ministry team, and we put together services for when Rev Jill is out of the pulpit. I'm so glad to see everyone here today, and I welcome all of those who are online as well. Rev Mark Richards describes himself as a wandering wanderer, a fitting title for someone whose journey has taken him through careers in fast food, manufacturing, and information technology before finding his calling as a hospice chaplain in Door County in 2016. A few years into this meaningful work, He was invited to join, I love saying this, the WUUSAN organization. It stands for Wisconsin UU State Action Network. He became a member of the board of directors. A committed advocate for social justice since becoming a UU in 1990, Mark stepped naturally into leadership as president, executive director, administrator, and devoted head cheerleader for this organization. When he isn't supporting the hospice community or Wisconsin UUs, Mark enjoys spending time with his wife of 50 years, Christina. Welcome, Rev. Mark. Our call to worship this morning is by Stephen M. Schick. Is the fire going out? Not in your belly, for you are still alive, but in your soul, that place where dreams fuel commitment, where longings shape action, where meaning flames purpose, where passion ignites and rekindles your life fire. If your soul smolders, dream on, till you flame like a chalice of hope. Our chalice lighting words today come from Sobonfu Some. Community is the spirit, the guiding light of the tribe, whereby people come together to fulfill a specific purpose, to help others fulfill their purpose, and to take care of one another. For our first song, please stand as you are willing and able for song number 126, Come, Thou Fount of Every Blessing.
Come, thou fount of every blessing, tune our hearts to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. While the hope of life's perfection fills our hearts with joy and love, teach us ever to be faithful. May we still thy goodness prove. Come, thou fount of every vision, lift our eyes to what may come. See the lion and the young lamb dwell together in thy home. Hear the cries of war fall silent, feel our love glow like the sun. When we all serve one another, then our heaven is begun. Come, thou fount of inspiration, turn our lives to higher ways. Lift our gloom and desperation, show the promise of this day. Help us bind ourselves in union, help our hands tell of our love. With thine aid, O fount of justice, earth be fair as heaven above.
We enter now a time for sharing of joys and sorrows that touch our individual lives. Our way we express through ritual the many ways that we touch and are touched by each other. In a moment, you'll be invited to come to the mic to share your joy or concern. If you have something you'd rather not share aloud, you may use the QR code in the order of service or the share side of the yellow slip to put something in writing. Raise your hand if you need a pen or pencil to write with. For those of you at home and for anyone at other times during the week, you can use the link in our weekly e-news to let us know what's going on in your lives and in your heart. Remember that what you share today is only for the ears of those gathered now. It will not be in the posted video of the service or shared in our e-news. So now, please come to the mic or raise your hand and an usher will bring you a mic. I'll light a candle for you, and after each sharing, I invite you all to respond with me. We hold you in love. Please come, and I will light a candle for you if you'd like. And we'll light one last candle for those joys and concerns not shared, but held deep in our hearts. We hold you in love. Our next song is a singing meditation. Please turn to page 127, or song 127, Can I See Another's Woe?
Can I see another's woe and not be in sorrow too? Can I see another's grief and not seek for kind relief? Can I see a falling tear and not feel my sorrows share? Can a father see his child weep, nor be with sorrow filled? Can a mother sit and hear infant groan and infant fear? No, no, never can it be. Never, never can it be.
Good morning. There are some hardy souls in Brookfield. And I'm sure there are also willing souls online too, so welcome. I want to start with a prayer. This is by the Reverend George Kimmich Beach. So if you would join me in a spirit of meditation, reflection, and prayer. Even now, it is not too late to hope for peace among the peoples of the earth. And always it is time to pray for justice. Although our minds cannot always see the way, our hearts will not be denied. Peace and justice are indivisible. Though grave injustices have been done, though the fires of hatred have been fanned, though too many have suffered already, the imperative to be courageous in the right stands constantly before us. Therefore, our hearts turn toward justice, and for justice we pray. Therefore, our heart turn towards peace, and for peace we pray. Peace and justice, though indivisible, are often severed. Our hearts are broken and will be again. This is a time of grave reflection. How will we, each of us, take our stand? Some of us fall to the one side and some to the other. Some speak of patient waiting, others of courageous action, some of peace, others of justice. Yet we are all caught in the dilemma, though peace and justice are indivisible, ever and again they are tragically set against each other. Therefore, in humility, we acknowledge that we cannot choose what is unambiguously right. We cannot join the broken circle. Therefore, we pray to be cleansed of all hatred and to give our hearts, our minds, and our wills to the just peace of all peoples in which faith shall yet be. Amen. So this morning we gather in a world which feels increasingly hurried, increasingly divided, often painfully indifferent. News cycles spin so quickly that yesterday's heartbreak is replaced by today's outrage. And the steady stream of images and stories can leave us numb rather than moved. I thought about this the other day. Of all the ways that I'm in communication these days, when I was young, there was a telephone, and every once in a while you wrote a letter. Now I have my telephone, which is with me all the time. I have 7 email accounts that I monitor, 3 of which have to do with WUUSAN, so if there's any volunteers out there who would like to take one on, I'd appreciate it. And then I have the 3 Facebook accounts, and some other stuff. I don't know what all it is. In such an environment, it's tempting to close our hearts for protection, to retreat into dispassionate reasoning and don the mantle of irrefutable logic. Yet this is precisely the opposite of what our deepest values call us to do. We are caught in a tension between the compassionate heart and the dispassionate mind. So dispassion describes that lack of strong emotions or feelings. It arises from a cultivated awareness that frees the mind from the turbulence of desire and aversion. It is not indifference or coldness, but a calm detachment born of understanding. The sources of dispassion can be traced to experience, to reflection, and to the pursuit of inner clarity. Direct experience often awakens dispassion when we see the impermanent nature of pleasure and pain and how both pass with time. They begin to loosen their emotional grip on outcomes. Success fades, beauty changes, possessions decay. These truths, witnessed repeatedly, erode the illusion that lasting happiness can be found in external things. Experience, then, becomes a quiet teacher of detachment. Reflection nurtures dispassion through discernment. Philosophers and spiritual teachers alike have urged us to contemplate what is within our control and what is not. When we realize that emotions often arise from mistaken attachments or unrealistic expectations, the mind naturally steps back. This inner reasoning, especially when paired with mindfulness, fosters equanimity rather than apathy. Compassion and wisdom together deepen dispassion. The Dalai Lama suggests that compassion is the merging of empathy and wisdom. Empathy connects us to others, while wisdom prevents us from being overwhelmed by their suffering. This balanced concern, feeling with others yet not being consumed, reflects mature dispassion. It allows for moral clarity and steady action, even in distressing situations. In our world, centered as it is on science and mindfulness, the dispassionate mind becomes the pinnacle of our emotional aspirations. Dispassion, while often praised for being clarity and peace, carries some potential downsides, however, especially when it's misstood or taken to extremes. One major risk is emotional disengagement. If dispassion hardens into indifference, a person may lose the capacity to connect deeply with others. Relationships thrive on empathy, vulnerability, shared feeling. Excessive detachment makes one appear cold, aloof, or unresponsive to the needs of others, undermining trust and intimacy. Charlie Kirk gave rise to the notion that empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage. He said he preferred sympathy. I submit to you that empathy is a state of emotional engagement. I bear witness and I share your pain. Whereas sympathy is a state of emotional disengagement. I bear witness to and regret that you have pain. Another downside is moral passivity. When dispassion becomes apathy, the drive to act against injustice or improve the world can weaken. Passion often fuels creativity, compassion, and reform. Without it, a person might rationalize inaction, mistaking emotional restraint for wisdom. True balance requires caring deeply without being consumed, but that equilibrium is difficult to maintain. Dispassion can also stifle aesthetic and creative vitality. Many forms of art, love, and inspiration arise from emotional intensity. I remember there's one poem that I've written in my life that I'm proud of. And I remember sitting in a hotel room at about 3 o'clock in the morning in tears, writing this one poem. A detached observer may find it harder to access the raw energy that propels self-expression. The arts, for example, thrive on longing, joy, and grief, emotions that deep dispassion can blunt. And lastly, dispassion may hinder personal growth if it suppresses authentic feeling. Emotions, even painful ones, often serve as teachers. Avoiding them in the name of calm can delay the understanding and transformation that come from feeling fully and reflecting wisely. In essence, danger lies not in dispassion itself, but in imbalance. When combined with compassion and engagement, it leads to insight and peace. When isolated from empathy or purpose, it becomes sterile, detached, morally inert. The challenge is to remain inwardly free while still fully human, able to care, create, and connect. Ultimately, dispassion comes from insight into the transient, interconnected nature of life. It is sourced not in withdrawal, but in seeing reality as it is. Those who cultivate dispassion through experience, reflection, and compassionate wisdom become freer, less swayed by praise or blame, gain or loss, more capable of living with peace, purpose, and authenticity in a restless world. Compassion, the ability to suffer with, to enter into the joys and sorrows of another, is not an optional virtue for a meaningful life. It is at the very core of what it means to be human. Compassion is not a sentiment reserved for the gentle-hearted or the unusually empathetic. It is a discipline, a way of living that must be practiced, nurtured, and built up especially when the world tells us to toughen up and turn away. The Dalai Lama reminds us that compassion is more than raw empathy. Empathy alone can be overwhelming, even distorted. True compassion, he teaches, is the merging of empathy with wisdom. Empathy allows us to feel with others, while wisdom guides us to respond in ways that are discerning, balanced, and sustainable. This insight shows us that compassion is not sentimentality. It is strength rooted in both heart and mind. In a world that often mistakes hardness for resilience, this union of empathy and wisdom is often a deeper, more enduring way to live. Who do you know that gives endlessly of themselves, always saying yes, always absorbing the pain of others, until they are exhausted and burned out? I'm trying to think if I know anybody in the UU world who does that. Probably everybody. That empathy is without wisdom. Now imagine the same person learning to set healthy boundaries, to care for themselves as well as they care for others, so that their giving is sustainable and truly helpful. That is compassion, empathy shaped and sustained by wisdom. It's not just about feeling deeply, but about acting wisely for the good of all. But we must acknowledge how hard it is to build compassion in a dispassionate world. When headlines speak of violence, when strangers are reduced to statistics, when political rhetoric divides us into us and them, compassion feels countercultural, even naive. The systems that govern much of our lives reward efficiency, productivity, competition, not tenderness or kindness. To choose compassion is to resist the tide. It is to insist that the humanity of others is never disposable, never secondary. And yet, even in a world of callousness, compassion is not extinguished. We see a flicker in the neighbor who checks in with an elder living alone, and the teacher who patiently listens to a struggling student, and the volunteer who shows up week after week at the food pantry. These acts are often quiet and unnoticed by the larger world, but they testify to a power greater than cynicism. They remind us that compassion has always been the ground of human community, the glue that keeps us from unraveling into isolation and despair. The challenge before us is not only to notice these sparks of compassion, but to kindle them into flame. We must ask ourselves, how do we cultivate hearts that remain open in the face of suffering? How do we create communities where compassion is the norm, not the exception? How do we speak and act in ways that remind the world that mercy is stronger than judgment, that love is stronger than fear? In the next few moments, I want us to reflect together on how compassion can be built up, not as a fleeting feeling, but as a personal practice, a communal commitment, and a response to the dispassion of our age. For when we build compassion, we are not only healing our neighbors, we are healing ourselves, and perhaps in some small but significant way, healing the world. The first is compassion as a personal practice. At its root is not simply a burst of emotion, it is a discipline. Most of us think compassion is something we either feel or don't feel, as though it's entirely outside of our control. But we can cultivate it. Just as we train our minds to focus or our bodies to grow stronger, so we can train our hearts to respond with compassion. It begins in the smallest of ways, pausing long enough to really listen when somebody speaks, asking a second question when a neighbor answers, "I'm fine." Offering a word of encouragement when another person seems weighed down. These are not great and heroic acts, but the building blocks of a compassionate life. If we wait until the big crisis to practice compassion, our hearts will likely shrink under the weight of it. But if we nurture compassion in the daily and the ordinary, we will be ready when the extraordinary moments come. We are invited to see compassion not as an occasional act of kindness, but as the very rhythm of our daily lives. Compassion in community because it cannot be built alone. It flourishes in the soil of community. Every time we gather, whether in families, circles of friends, or wider groups, we are entering a kind of school of compassion, a training ground where we practice patience with one another, forgiveness when we fall short, encouragement when we grow weary. In community, we learn that compassion is not a solitary effort, but a shared responsibility. History reminds us that societies survive and thrive through compassion. Communities have endured hardship by caring for the vulnerable, by widening the circle of belonging. This is still our calling. In a fractured society, our neighborhoods, our organizations, and institutions can become beacons of compassion. Safe places where people know they will be seen, heard, and cared for. When compassion is woven into the fabric of a community, it becomes contagious. One act sparks another until the whole is alive with mercy. Our shared humanity teaches us that we do not carry the burden of compassion alone. Together, we bear one another's burdens, and in doing so, we create resilience, connection, and trust. And finally, we talk about compassion as a countercultural witness. For compassion is not just for our private lives or even our communities. It is also our public witness to the world. In an age of dispassion where cynicism, division, and indifference are seen as signs of strength, choosing compassion is a radical act. It resists the temptation to see people as problems, statistics, or enemies. It insists that every life is precious and worthy of dignity. When we feed the hungry, care for the vulnerable, or stand alongside the marginalized, we not only showing individual kindness, we are proclaiming that compassion is stronger than cruelty, that mercy is stronger than judgment. Compassion challenges systems that tell us efficiency is more important than humanity, or that profit is more valuable than dignity. Compassion disrupts cycles of violence and fear by insisting on love and justice as the final word. This is not to say that compassion is always simple. As some critics remind us, empathy and compassion can sometimes be manipulated in political or social contexts. Writers like Paul Bloom have argued that empathy in particular can be biased, favoring those most like us, and sometimes even fueling division. Studies in political science suggest that empathy can sharpen partisanship as we emphasize our side and harden against the other side. These critiques echo the worry that emotional appeals alone can be weaponized or lead us astray. Compassion is widely regarded as a virtue, yet even this noble quality can have downsides when it is unbalanced by wisdom, boundaries, or discernment. One risk is emotional exhaustion. Deep compassion, especially in caregiving, activism, or helping professions, can lead to compassion fatigue. When individuals constantly absorb others' sufferings, Without replenishing their own energy, they may experience burnout, anxiety, or numbness. The Dalai Lama himself warns that compassion without wisdom can become overwhelming, turning empathy and distress rather than into effective care. A second downside is enabling behavior. Excessive compassion can blur moral and practical boundaries, leading one to excuse harmful actions or shield others from necessary consequences. For example, constantly rescuing someone from the results of their behavior can prevent their growth and accountability. True compassion sometimes requires allowing discomfort so that learning and change can occur. Compassion can also lead to bias and partiality. Humans naturally feel more compassionate for those they identify with, our community, or people who share our worldview, while overlooking the suffering of distant, unfamiliar others. Without reflection, compassion can reinforce tribalism rather than transcend it. And finally, compassion can create emotional imbalance if it becomes performative or self-sacrificial. People may overextend themselves to prove their goodness, confusing compassion with self-neglect. This can erode authenticity and mental health. In sum, the downside of compassion emerges not from caring too much, but from caring without clarity. When guided by wisdom, compassion becomes sustainable, impartial, and empowering. But without that balance, it can turn into fatigue, confusion, or dependency. Mature compassion, therefore, requires as much insight as feeling, a steady flame rather than a consuming fire. To be people of compassion, then, is to bear witness to a vision of the world where the last are lifted up, where the broken are healed, where the stranger is welcomed, and where love reigns over all. It is not an easy path, but is the one that lights the way forward. And in following it, we shine as lights in a world desperate for warmth, connection, and hope. As Unitarian Universalists, we are armed with 7 powerful values to help us light the path. Justice, equity, as compassion fuels the moral agency behind justice and equity. It calls us to relieve suffering and confront unfairness. Yet dispassion provides the steadiness to act wisely rather than reactively. Together they balance heart and reason. Compassion drives us to care, while dispassion ensures our pursuit of justice remains fair-minded and sustainable rather than vengeful or self-righteous. As the Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison Reed says, the central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. Transcendence and interconnection relate to dispassion. Dispassion helps us transcend ego and the illusions of separateness. It opens the way to perceive the deep interconnection of all beings without being overwhelmed by emotional entanglement. Compassion informed by this insight becomes universal rather than selective, rooted in understanding rather than in sentiment alone. This pairing reflects a spirituality grounded in clarity and connection. Gratitude and pluralism as expressions of love. When compassion meets dispassion, gratitude naturally arises, an appreciation for the shared human condition, joys and sorrows alike. Dispassion allows us to respect differing truths, which is pluralism, without defensiveness, while compassion sustains an open heart towards all perspectives. Their union deepens love from a feeling into a practice, a calm, inclusive goodwill that honors diversity and nurtures unity. So, my friends, we are called to build compassion as a practice, as a community, and as witness, empowered by our love-centered values. The world may tell us to harden our hearts, but compassion calls us to open them. The world may urge us to turn away, but compassion calls us to draw near. And in choosing compassion again and again, we will discover not only that others are healed, but that we ourselves are transformed. For compassion is not only our duty, it is our joy, our hope, and our path towards a more inclusive world. Amen. May it ever be so.
So, each month, UUCW chooses an organization to honor, you might say, and to show our compassion. This month, and this is obviously the last Sunday of the month, our organization is the Tribal Elder Food Boxes. This program works through multi-sector partnerships to build a vibrant food system that offers nutritious, culturally appropriate foods while supporting indigenous and local producers across the Great Lakes region. The pandemic highlighted significant food insecurity in tribal communities. And since 2019, tribal nations in Wisconsin and Michigan have expanded the Tribal Elder Food Box program to strengthen food sovereignty for elders. Growing collaboration, intergenerational connections, and the belief that good food is good medicine make this an inspiring partner. Split the Plate is proud to support their work this month. To join this effort, drop a donation in the offering basket or go to UUCW's website, click the Donate tab, and select Split the Plate from the menu provided. Or you can text or mail your donation using the form found here. We thank you very much for your support.
to the work of this community, which is to ground ourselves in love and joy and to act for inclusion and justice, we dedicate ourselves and these offerings. Please stand as you are willing and able for our next song, number 124, Be That Guide.
Be that guide whom love sustains, rise above the daily strife. Lift on high the good you find, help to heal the hurts of life. Be that helper nothing daunts, doubt a friend or taunt a foe. Ever strive for liberty, show the path that life should go. Be that builder trusting good, bitter though the test may be. Through all ages they are right, though they build in agony. Be that teacher faith directs, move beyond the old frontier. Though the frightened fear that faith be tomorrow's pioneer.
Thanks, Reuben, and thanks to Reverend Mark for a wonderful message today, and for being here and for arriving on Friday evening just to beat the worst of the snowstorm. Thanks again. As we extinguish our chalice, I'll read closing words by Kathy A. Huff. Our time in this place may have ended, but our connection to each other and this community remains. Together may we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, live the selfless deed, trod gently upon the earth, and fill the world with compassion. Until we meet again, blessed be.